is more evidence big Australia is getting bigger. Again, booming migration numbers accounted for 84% of Australia's population growth last year, according to the latest figures from the ABS, pushing the total population to nearly 27 million. Now, the data showed that while almost 1 million people arrived in Australia then left since the start of 2022, the pace of net overseas migration is indeed beginning to slow, but nowhere near enough. In fact, Macro Business co-founder Leith Van Onselen says Labor's migration forecasts have been smashed to smithereens. And Leith joins me now. Leith, good to see you. Firstly, take us through the latest ABS data.
Yeah, look, Danica, these data is absolutely out of control. So what it basically showed is that viewers might recall that last year we had the highest migration in Australia's history. Now, it was previously reported at about 550,000 up to the September quarter. Now, this week we received the December quarter migration numbers, and what it actually did was it actually revised upwards last year's migration peak, to 565,000. So it's actually higher than we expected previously. And as of the December quarter, it had only retraced back to effectively what we thought it was in the September quarter last year of 548,000. So these numbers are absolutely off the charts. And what it basically means is that, you know, Labor's migration forecasts for this financial year have been completely obliterated. So Labor tipped in the most recent federal budget that just came out last week that Australia's migration this financial year would be 390,000. Now, in the first two quarters of this financial year, so we're talking Q3 and Q4 of last year, we've already got 308,000. So that leaves only 87,000 left in the final two quarters of this financial year. So we're talking the March quarter and the June quarter to meet Labor's forecasts. And given all the monthly data that we've had on net permanent long-term arrivals, what it basically tells you is that our migration this financial year is probably going to beat that by about 100,000. And it's going to completely obliterate Labor's forecasts. And I'll just add that this isn't the first time this has happened. So just to take a quick walk down memory lane, when the Albanese government was first elected, it held its first budget in October in 2022. And it tipped that Australia's net overseas migration last financial year would be 235,000. It then revised it up to 400,000 in last year's federal budget. Well, it actually ended up being nearly 550,000. So it missed it by miles. So it's almost double what Labor had forecast last year. And then it's going to repeat the same mistake this year in that migration is going to be a hell of a lot higher than what it tipped in last month's budget. So what it basically tells me is Labor has no idea with its migration forecast, and migration just keeps coming in a lot higher than it projects.
No, exactly. And it's clear Labor's sold us a lemon when it comes to migration. And this is really an acute vote-driving issue that has to be taken to the next election. Meanwhile, Leith, Australia has been declared the least affordable housing market in the English-speaking world, with Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide ranked among the 10 most unaffordable global cities. I mean, surely the rate of migration is having an impact.
Yeah, well, especially more so on rents. So definitely, look, Australia's housing market is obviously rising in the face of 13 consecutive interest rate rises, which is really unusual. Like usually when interest rates go up, house prices go down. But because we've had this record migration, and that's also driving record rents, we're actually having, extreme case of FOMO, fear of missing out on the market, and that's pushing up house prices. And certainly, yes, it is placing upward pressure on house prices. The bigger issue, though, Danica, is actually the rental market, where rents have risen by about, over 30% since the beginning of the pandemic, and that's really traced back mainly to migration. We've had this huge population boom. Australia's population grew by about 650,000 last year. Obviously, 84% of that were net overseas migration, and that's fueling the rental market inflation, which to me, in my view, is a bigger problem because that tends to impact lower income earners more.
Yeah, they're extraordinary figures. Leith Van Onselen, we have to leave it there. Really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thanks, Danica.